Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. This is Dr. Campbell. This is the Wellness Hustle podcast where ambition meets alignment and the hustle gets a healthy glow up. I'm your host, Dr. Neville Campbell, and today we are diving into what is really means to lead with heart, to grind with grace, and to show up with purpose. Joining me is a powerhouse in the world of law and community impact. Attorney Shari, in 2 years, has accomplished more than what most people have accomplished in decades. In many cases, that ranges greater than $2.5 million. She has closed over 29 cases at policy limits, and she has boldly filed lawsuits in about 15 cases so far. But Shari isn't just about legal hustle. She's also about legacy. She's received numerous prestigious industry awards. She's added members to her staff, visiting local schools, volunteering in 5 community events, sponsoring numerous local community initiatives, and donating over $25,000 in charity. This is balance. This is what balance truly looks like. Impact with intention, service with strategy, and hustle with wellness. So whether you're looking to build your brand, fight for justice, or just trying to balance passion with peace, get ready to be inspired. This is the Wellness Hustle with Dr. Campbell, and today we welcome Attorney Shari. Let's get into it. Attorney Shari, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Campbell.
So let's talk. I've heard quite a bit about you. I've heard about your story, but tell us, where are you from? Where did this begin? We sit here looking at this beautiful, amazing lady, but did this just happen overnight? Or was there a path to this process, a path to who you are right now? Tell us about your background a little bit.
Absolutely. I'm from Lake Charles, Louisiana. So I was born and raised in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I come from a family of educators. Most notably, it's not lost on me that I come from a pretty educated family. To say that I come from Louisiana, people don't think that we're very educated in Louisiana. They think we ride pirogues and go fishing all day. So my grandfather and my grandmother both were college educated. They both had master's degrees. And so my grandmother was really a pivotal person in my life who made sure education was extremely important. My father has 2 master's degrees and my mother has a degree. So pretty much everybody went to school. So I didn't have a choice. But
I guess you had no choice but to be educated as well. So how did law come about?
So that's pretty easy. There's multiple reasons why law came about. One, because like I said, I was raised by teachers. So I was like, my mom always used to be like, I don't have any money for that. I'm like, I'm not going to be a teacher. They're not making any money. So that was the first reason. And the second reason was my mom's favorite show growing up was Law and Order.
Gotcha.
And so we always watched that together. That was like our quality time. And then I would say the third reason was that I was actually, I am a survivor of child sexual abuse. And so we went to trial on my case, and the abuse occurred. The earliest memory I had of it was when I was in middle school, but it didn't come out. I didn't disclose anything until I was in high school. And really, I didn't even disclose it. I told my best friend, and she was like, I can't know what's happening to you and not tell anybody about it. So she had the foresight at that age to say, I'm not going to stand for that. And whether you want to be my friend anymore or not, I'm going to tell somebody about it. So,
wow. What was that like during middle school to keep that bottled up? And how was it affecting you at that point?
It was extremely impactful. Actually, I wrote about it in a journal, and they used that during my trial because I talked about it a lot in a journal.
Gotcha. So journaling was your way of dealing with the thoughts you're experiencing, dealing with the anxiety you're experiencing,
Yes.
dealing with just how to continue on
Yes.
and expressing it to something, to someone.
Yes. Because like I said, I didn't talk about it. So that was my way to release it. And I would talk to God about it, so I would think, I always had this thought where I was like, God felt that I was the person that could handle it. So even though it was unpleasant, I felt like it was part of my testimony, like in the future.
Did you have siblings?
I do. I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest. And of course, your parents were busy professionals working. Did you feel like there wasn't a safe space at home for you to discuss this?
Well, yes and no. My mom always used to ask me, but I just didn't want to. So it kind of, even at that young age, I always thought about the future. And so a little bit more about me is that even though I talked about my father and my mom, my parents were married, but they got a divorce when I was very young. So my mom remarried. And as we know from statistics, when your parent like remarries, that like it's so much more times that you're like at risk for being abused.
Yes.
And so she remarried my stepfather, and it was like the first time that I felt my mom was like, seeing my mom really happy, because we lived in a really nice house, and like, my stepfather was the breadwinner. My mom was a teacher, and he was making over 6 figures. And so like, and my sister came about when I was in the 3rd grade, 1997. And I wanted my sister to have the life that I did not have, as far as like 2 parents in a home. And so I didn't say anything for that reason.
Do you feel like from a mental health standpoint, there is any sort of residual effects, or can there be residual effects from that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what I don't hear a lot of people talking about is the fact that it's not just a situation where it impacts just me. It destroys families. Because even though I was the direct, recipient of the abuse, like my sister was impacted as well. My mother was impacted, because once it came out, it was life shattering for me. Because I could talk about that, but like the judge that presided over the case, I went to high school with his son. One of the lawyers on the other side was the dad of one of my classmates. Because I'm from a really small town.
Gotcha.
And so there's only one DA's office, and so it was in the newspaper. I was embarrassed, and I was removed from the home. I had to go live with my dad, and I had never lived with him before.
Right.
I knew who he was. My dad was always very active, but like living in the house, like being removed, that was like very dramatic. Yeah.
It's really amazing that, I think one of our other topics to discuss is going to be resilience. Because to think about going through that sort of traumatic experience, but not just that, navigating, the psychological issues and challenges that comes along with that, still remaining, somewhat focused on your goals, not being, weighed down or burdened with, the negativity that's associated with this sort of abuse, and then rising above all of that to where you are right now. So I believe you were practicing, you're working in a prosecutor's role, right? Tell me about that a little bit.
So that was part of one of the things with the abuse as well, because like I said, I went to trial, and one of the prosecutors, when she was prepping me, she said to me, which it really wasn't profound, but it always left a lasting impression.
Mm-hmm.
So she said to me, remember to tell the truth, And, you have to keep your composure. Don't lose your cool. Like, stay calm, because they're going to try to discredit you. And you have to convince these jurors to believe like what you're saying is true. We believe you. We understand that it's true, but you have to convince everyone on that jury
Right.
to side in your favor. And think about this, Dr. Campbell. I was a child when I went through that. I didn't get to trial until I was a sophomore in college.
Wow.
So when you think about like credibility, they're looking at a young woman. So we're talking about what happened to me as a child, but you're looking at a young woman.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's like I was tasked,
Yeah.
and so she was my prosecutor. She believed in me. She told me those two things, and it really stuck with me. And I wanted to be that person for someone else. So,
that's a beautiful story. I mean, and I think that, taking that sort of, how to say, hurt and that sort of negativity, and then transforming it into something positive, using it to fuel your direction. But since then, you've done possibly well, in the prosecuting role in cases, but then you've successfully transitioned your practice from prosecuting, cases now to launching your own personal injury practice in the past 2 years. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That's actually major. And what wellness practices, given that you've been through all of this, I know you probably practice various wellness techniques and habits to keep you balanced. But what wellness techniques and practices that you would say that have helped you to navigate the emotional and possibly even the professional stresses of this sort of major life-changing career shift?
It's a lot. I do a few things. One, I like to sit in silence sometimes. Just doing nothing. Sometimes even I drive. When I drive, I don't listen to music.
Yeah.
Just like, so it's just me and my thoughts, clearing my head. Also, of course, I work out. I also go and get massages and facials. And my faith is a really big thing for
Gotcha.
me. So,
Well, that's important. Having, a faith-based sort of anchor when you're going through anything that is stressful is key. And of course, practicing, whether it's meditation, whether it's mindfulness. I tell people a lot that I practice those things almost on a daily basis, because as a professional like you are, the challenges are great every single day. And oftentimes they're underestimated by others who aren't going through or haven't been in your role. And it takes a lot to get through. And sometimes that's silence, sometimes closing out the noise and just letting your brain, letting God speak to you, letting you understand what your role is, what your next step is, sometimes is the best thing that you can do for yourself. So I'm glad that you found a way to balance it all and utilizing all of these wellness techniques. And certainly you sharing them now, I'm certain that there are other people hearing these things and will likely think how they can employ them to better manage their challenges that they're facing. So we talked briefly about you being the vice chair of the Black Women's Mental Health Institute. And of course, I'm thinking about it now and seeing how that ties into what you went through. That's a big mental health issue if you think about it. And a lot of the triggers to mental health in today's society are things that are not dealt with. Things that happen, whether it's in childhood or in adolescent years, and because there's no outlet, because there's no, a person that I can talk to or feel like a space is safe enough. I'm dealing with this trauma while my mind is trying to deal with and trying to bottle it up. I then get into the state where I develop these negative tendencies, and ultimately they manifest in depression, anxiety, PTSD. I'm upset and sad for no reason or not understanding why, because we have a lot of undealt with issues. Not our fault, but they were they were born in those earlier years and just never dealt with. So I'm really happy that you went through a process, even though the process was somewhat embarrassing, it led to some sort of closure for you where you could then take what you've learned and extracted and then make it into something positive. So thinking about your role as the vice chair of this Black Women's Mental Health Institute, how has your legal background shaped your approach to advocating for mental wellness in these marginalized communities?
Well, when I can talk about it from my practice standpoint, as well as tying into Black Women's Mental Health Institute, what I've learned about the mental health space is that it's not very diverse. Black clinicians are still like the lowest number. And so the organization helps to diversify the space.
Gotcha.
But the law piece of it in helping the marginalized community, like you talked about, is the clients that I serve. A lot of them are part of that demographic, and mental health is expensive. Even if you have insurance, it's still like something that you have to pay for it. So in a way, mental health is somewhat of a luxury. So going just briefly back to Black Women's Mental Health Institute, they make it more accessible for people because they offer free mental health counseling. So, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Black woman or not, they'll still see you. But to go back to the practice and how I use that is that car accidents are traumatic. And so I always make sure that my clients are dealing with both the body and the mind as a result of car accidents. So when I'm talking to adjusters, negotiating cases, I often speak about the mental health aspect
component.
Of the case.
So that's a great sort of segue into our next question. And certainly I believe that mental health is as a medical provider, I can tell you mental health is underserved, and access to mental health care, it's truly a privilege in some areas. Though it should just be a right, it's a privilege. And I think, we're seeing more and more where, especially certain underserved communities, they have less access, less treatment options. And we see the higher incidence of these, maladaptive conditions in these communities. So I respect what you're doing for that community, and I respect how you're lending your skills to assist. And I think more of us need to lend our skills and services in these areas because it would really have a positive impact on the generations to come. But regarding the questions, the question I said that this leads into the next question perfectly is, so you've worked for major insurance companies. So as someone who's worked for major insurance companies, how do you use the inside knowledge that you have gained to empower your clients to empower your clients? And then how do they tie that into wellness overall, if at all possible?
So that's a loaded question. I'm going to do my best to answer.
Yeah, first, let's just talk about, the inside knowledge that you gain from the insurance carriers, and how do you use that for your clients?
Oh, yes, absolutely use it to my advantage. So one of the biggest things is just understanding the process and how things work. And so I know what insurance companies are looking for as it relates to how to work up a case and how they value or evaluate certain things. And so that's really where the wellness thing came in.
Gotcha.
That was the initial thing. So when I was on the other side, what I would notice is people would say they had PTSD or they had anxiety, but they had no way of proving that. It was just, I have these things. And so there's not much value that's going to be added onto a deposition statement or their deposition testimony that says, I have PTSD. I mean, well, are you a medical provider?
Right,
Are you
right.
trained to,
Who diagnosed
who
this?
diagnosed you with that?
Yes.
And so then the next question becomes, well, what are you doing to address that?
Right.
What have you done? And so it's like, well, I haven't done anything, so
The
how,
question is, are you really injured? If you're not,
yes,
if you're not treating, then how can we prove that you're injured?
correct. And it's like, they already don't value general damages. When you talk to adjusters, they're usually talking about special damages. I mean, yeah, that's all they're talking about is special
Yeah.
damages. And I have to tell them all the time, this case is not valued from a solely special damages perspective.
Correct.
So, because I have my clients to treat with mental health professionals.
Right, right.
And so, we have a lot of cases like that. And so I've been able to add value in the cases because I place emphasis on general damages.
You know what? Thank you for sharing that. I'm a medical provider. I see a lot of patients who are injured, and that's one of the conditions that I notice more often than not is not addressed. A lot of us address the spine, and we address what we consider components of TBI if we suspect it, if it's a disc displacement. But the subtler changes, the depressive affect, the anxiety, the avoidance of driving in certain areas or certain roads, that has an impact on someone's life. And if it's not properly addressed and managed, over time that can become an actual medical condition that actually leads to some sort of disability. So those practitioners and those attorneys who are astute to pick up and drive the workup of these subtler items can actually help to add value to the cases. So I'm really happy that you're cognizant of these things and you're helping to get your clients the appropriate treatment. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're about to wrap up, but you currently wear many hats. I mean, when I looked at your story and I sort of read about it, I'm blown away. And even before we just got started to speak, I'm like, wow. So you're an attorney, you're an advocate, you are a professor, you're a mentor. I mean, what else are you not? Like I tell you, it's amazing. And so as I think about all of this, a beautiful young lady with all these accolades behind her, blazing her trail, what advice would you give to the ambitious professionals who are striving for excellence on how to sustain a long-term success without compromising their wellness or their well-being?
What would I say?
Yeah.
In a nutshell,
What would you tell them?
I think I tell my students this all the time, you need to focus on doing the work and doing it well and pay attention to the things that people say about you over and over and over again. And that is part of, those are gifts, even though we look at gifts from people who are athletic or people who can sing, but you and I being able to have a conversation, that's almost a gift, because how many people can't even have a conversation these days? Right. So I would say that to do the work, do it well, do it with purpose and intention. And the school that I went to, Southern University Law Center, the law school, I also teach at. Our motto is seriousness of purpose. So you always want to look at that. Doing the work, doing it well, but doing it with purpose and intention. And for us at the Trahan firm, or law office of Shari Trahan, we do everything with the notion that the answer is that whatever we're doing, we're honoring God. So if it's not honoring God, then we don't do it.
Amen.
So,
amen to that. I think that is an absolute perfect note for us to end on. Whatever we're doing, we need to honor God. I believe the scripture says, put God first, right? And then everything else will fall into place. I'm really happy that we get a chance to speak today. I'm excited to see what the next 5 years, the next 10 years look for you so far, the past 2 years have shown that, you guys are about business. You're about transformation and you're about impact, perfectly in line with, I think, what is an amazing, amazing trajectory currently. Stay on the right track. And I think with God, with you guys, there's nothing that's going to be impossible.
Thank you.
Attorney Shari, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. Looking forward to sharing your story and your journey with our audience. Now, if you could tell people where to find you, what's your number, what's your website, what's your social media handle, I would like people to know about you.
Okay. So you can find me at Trahan Firm. It's TRAHANFIRM. That's on Instagram and Facebook. And our number is 404-919-7422.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.